Hello there, fans and frenemies, and welcome back to another video. So, uh, wow. You saw the title. That sure is, something. So, back in October, I had a grand mal seizure on my actual and literal birthday. And I'll go ahead and link it in the description if you want all of the details about that. But I'll recap real quick for anybody just coming in. Like I said, back in October, I had a seizure. It was pretty crazy. I spent the night in the hospital and everything, with a big old tube sock on my head. I got an MRI and, yeah, all that stuff. And then, then they sent me home. They put me on a new medication called Keppra that, ruined my brain. So if you have been wondering why my content has been fewer and farther between the past few months, that would be why. I posted a video every day for 2 years straight at one point in my life, but once I was on Keppra, I was going a month or two without making literally anything and sleeping 10 to 20 hours a day. It sucked. Fortunately, though, I managed to switch to a different medication eventually, so I'm like a human person again. Or a cat, I guess. Meow. So the thing is, after I had that seizure, I had a pretty good guess as to why. I was on a medication at the time that's pretty well known to have the potential to cause seizures. So in my head, obviously, as soon as I got off of that medication, I'd be all good, right? No worries. And then in January, I spoke to a neurologist who had actually studied my MRI and everything, and he tells me something unexpected. He diagnosed me with focal bilateral temporal lobe epilepsy. And I'm like, hello, excuse me? Excuse me? I have what now? So, yeah, it turns out I have epilepsy. So for context, I've actually had 2 seizures before the big one, but I wasn't actually sure that's what they were at the time. When I had them, I was alone, so no one saw anything. And from my perspective, I just sort of was hanging out, and then I woke up suddenly, having not remembered falling asleep, but with a weird and indescribable feeling. And I had this gut feeling both times that it was a seizure, but with no witnesses or anything, and like no history of seizures. It seemed like such a bizarre thing to think, and there was no way to be sure. So, I did talk to my doctor, my GP, both times, and I meant to see a neurologist, but, I always had stuff to do, and the first one was towards the beginning of the pandemic, so, I just didn't get it done until I went to the hospital. Still, I had been on that medication I mentioned both of those times, and as far as I knew, I had never had a seizure before. So I was still thinking that was it, that was the cause. But he tells me that, it might have contributed, but it also might have had no impact at all. Because no, I have epilepsy, and based on the damage to my temporal lobe, I've had it for a long time, most likely since I was a child. So I've got to go in for a brain study with an EEG. And, wow! That was a lot to take in. So afterward, I was kind of dumbfounded. I've been apparently having seizures for most of my life, and no one noticed? Including myself. How crazy is that? So, if you take anything away from this, it's a reminder that grand mal seizures aren't the only kind. Seizures are not always, convulsing. Sometimes they can be really short and not really look like anything. So, be on the lookout, I guess? I have no idea. I'm still flabbergasted. I still don't even know what my tiny seizures look like. They could be absent seizures where you're just kind of, not there in your brain. I really don't know. I don't know. I'm not there for them. So the thing that really caught me off guard, though, was the word, damage? And so I'm like, I'm sorry, you mean damage to my brain? As in, brain damage? And, yeah, turns out, yes, damage to my brain is in brain damage. Specifically to my temporal lobe, which is the part responsible for lots of memory stuff and executive functioning and focus and language and a bunch of other things. I've mentioned like a lot that I've got really lousy memory, but it's like really bad. Like I lose whole conversations and stuff. I never like I just if someone tells me something happened, I generally just assume they're probably right, even if I don't remember it, because I don't know. I don't remember anything. And it turns out that there's a reason for that. And like the thing is, I've been diagnosed with ADHD. My dad has ADHD. And that also affects stuff like working memory and focus and executive functioning. So, it was really easy to write off all of those issues as just being a particularly bad case of ADHD. But turns out it's in fact unusually bad even for ADHD. That part of my brain is damaged. It doesn't work right. Oops. And there's no way to fix it. Once it's damaged, it's damaged. And all I can do now is prevent it from getting worse. Which is great, at least. I mean, like, that's good. Like, it's not going to get any worse now, hopefully, but I mean, it's still kind of a big and scary thing to confront. Like, wowie, I have brain damage. The good news is that it doesn't really change anything. Obviously, I've been dealing with the symptoms of it for like a long time. Like, I already know they exist. And I just know why and have a word for it now. But it doesn't mean I'm experiencing something new. It's already there. So it's been tough to consolidate, but I've been doing okay, I think. I've been making a lot of jokes about it, like, Nate, why didn't you take the trash out last night? Sorry, dude, I have brain damage. Nate, why didn't you bring a notebook today? Sorry, brain damage. Nate, why did you burn down that orphanage? Come on, dude, it's the brain damage. Cut me some slack. But for real, it's kind of a weird thing to grapple with, to try and integrate that into the way I perceive myself, Like, I don't remember having a seizure. I don't remember having any seizures. My brain turned off while it was happening. I don't remember that. I just remember sitting on the couch, and then I remember waking up on the floor, and I was disoriented, but I didn't actually feel disoriented. From my perspective, I was fine. So it's kind of crazy to even think this is, like, real and happening when I wasn't, like, around for it. So, like I said, he told me I had to get, like, a big old brain EEG test thing, right? Get ready for this. It's gonna blow your mind. I spent 5 days in the hospital, Sunday to Friday, over Valentine's and everything. That's the third holiday I've lost out on in a row. Like, I had the seizure on my birthday in October, and then Christmas, I was supposed to visit my parents, and I had to cancel last minute because I got the flu. And now I've lost Valentine's Day. Like, come on, right? So, anyway, I get to the hospital, and I get suited up in a fancy little tube sock. I'll post a photo because the description does not do it justice, but there's all kinds of wires and stuff under there glued to my head. I also had an IV in all week, and it's been a little bit under a month now since then, and I am pretty sure that's actually going to scar. I've just got a little dot on my arm now. So I've got all this stuff on my head. I've got a bunch of heart monitor stuff glued to my chest, and I've got the IV in my arm, and it's all taped down and everything. And that's just what I lived like for 5 days. I couldn't take any of that off. And also for like the first 3 days, my vitals had to get taken every 2 hours, so sleep was like not my friend. And even after that, it was still every 4 hours. And you have to wake up for that. Hot dog, was it all cumbersome. And then, just to really put the icing on the cake, I was not allowed to get out of bed without calling a nurse. So, you see, the whole point of this thing is trying to get me to have a seizure under observation. They got my brain being monitored with the tube sock, so when I have a seizure, they can see what's going on in my brain and everything. So they stopped my epilepsy medication, which apparently pretty commonly leads to a seizure pretty soon thereafter. So since the goal is to give me a seizure, I could have a seizure at any time. So if I'm walking around, that could be really dangerous, like you could conk your head open. So I just can't do that. If I want to go to the bathroom, a nurse has to stand outside the door the whole time, just in case. So let's just say I spent a lot of time holding my pee in. I mean, the whole thing was pretty scary, honestly. My last seizure was a grand mal, and it was over 2 minutes. I was thrashing around, and again, obviously, I don't remember it. I was busy having a seizure, but my mom stayed with me in the hospital the whole time, and like the idea of having a grand mal seizure in front of my mom is scary. I don't want my mom to see that. It had my anxiety like out of this world. So it was a big, scary, long week, and at the end of it, nothing. Yeah, no, I didn't have any seizure activity also. Thank you, brain, for being a big jerk and not cooperating. So I didn't actually end up learning much. I learned that if I stop taking my medication, I don't immediately have a seizure. So that's good. But other than that, not really. I don't know what my tiny seizures really look like, or exactly how all the brain stuff is firing, or precisely where, or how often. And I mean, I don't even know for sure if my medication is actually doing anything. 30 to 40% of epileptic people are apparently totally medication resistant. So, like, that's a that's a really big number. That's a really high chance. I can't really just like write that off. I didn't have a seizure on it, or haven't yet, but I have only had 3 seizures in 3 years that were bad enough that I actually knew that they were seizures, and it's only been a couple of months. So, who knows? Not me. And now all I'm left with is, well, if you have a seizure, call your neurologist back. And that's about it. I just kind of have to keep my fingers crossed, and I don't really know much else. It's kind of a scary thing to have hanging over your head, honestly. The good news, at least, is that I'm off Keppra, which is the drug that I was on when I made that last video. And it was making me miserable. So, I'm feeling way better. Happy naters. Hopefully I can get back to getting, like, more work done for you guys, because I like animating, and I like posting, and not being able to draw, even though I wanted to, really sucked. So that's about where I am right now. It's all just wild stuff. I'm still kind of muddling my way through it all, but, we all do our best every day and all that. I hope you guys are hanging in there too. That's about it for this video, but I also want to remind everyone still listening that my plushies are on sale now. You can pre-order them for 30 USD, and they are so cute and cuddly and soft in person. It's unreal. I showed all my friends, and everybody gets so excited. I absolutely love them. This merch collab is one of the coolest things I've ever done. Thank you, Gimme Swag, for this opportunity. I am so excited about it. I hope to get the chance to do more stuff like this in the future, like maybe a cuddly little Bruno plushie or a Sachiel statue. That would be so cool. So if you buy or have bought one, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting me and my work. Being an artist doesn't pay well, as you probably know, but getting to spend my time creating is what makes me happy. So, thank you. Okay then, that's everything. Naders out!